Matthew 2, 1 through 12. So if you've got your Bibles flipped there. We're going to read through it once, hit a few details, read through it again, and then I'll end giving you some super specific stuff that you can do just to sort of remind yourself, especially as we go into Christmas. But before we do that, I just want to ask you a question, and it's the question on the screen. Who's the king?
God.
Yes, that's my son. Thanks, buddy. Yeah. So who's the king, right? Who's the king? And then on top of that, who's your king? Who's your king? So Matthew 2, 1 through 12. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem. And they asked, "Where's the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star in the east, and we have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Christ was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will be the shepherd of my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go, make a careful search for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I too may go and worship him." And after they'd heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold and incense and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. So it's a story we've heard, depending, once a year since you were born, right? Very familiar to us. We've got three characters that I want to talk about and get some details, and then we'll go through it again, and maybe some things will start popping at us. So the first three characters, we've got Jesus, right, the main character, and then the two sub-characters, we've got Herod and sort of his cronies, and then the Magi. And so I'll start that in reverse order. So who are these Magi? Right, we've got these Magi. Where do they come from? They come from the east. So are they Jews or not Jews? Not Jews, right? These are Gentiles. They come from somewhere in the east, and what brings them? They see a star, right? This star in the sky. Somehow they know that signals the Jewish Messiah has been born. We have no idea how they knew this or why they were expecting it. It's total mystery. But for some reason, these Magi, so we always picture them, we assume that there's three. That's just because there were three gifts. Doesn't necessarily mean there were three. Often they're said to be kings. That's almost certainly not true. They're these priests, these astronomers or astrologers who come in and they're Gentiles. Then you've got Herod, right? So Herod is the current king of Judah. At this point, Israel and Judah have been taken over by Rome, and Herod has been, through a bunch of political maneuvering and very shady business, he's become king. All right? Herod reigned from 37 BC to 4 BC, which places the birth of Jesus somewhere around 6 BC. If you're wondering why it's not 0, it's because the Christian calendar was set in the 500s, and they messed up on their math somewhere along the way. So Herod, 37 to 4 BC, and the saying, while not historically accurate, is true. It was safer to be Herod's sow than it was his son. It's a Greek saying, there's a little play on words. But Herod had multiple wives killed, multiple sons killed, because he was super paranoid that they were going to rise up against him. And so when you think about, is Herod a true king? Not so much. He's a politician and a murderer. Not a good guy. And then you got Jesus, right? The main character of the story, who Matthew is setting up as the true king. And so knowing that, let's go back through and try and pick out what Matthew's trying to get at here. So Jesus, after Jesus was born, I'm back in 2:1. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, who else was born in Bethlehem? There's a certain figure in... What's up, buddy? Close. Good. Always the right answer in church, but not this time. Go back. Famous king. King David. David was born in Bethlehem, right? That's, remember, son of Abraham, son of David. So Jesus born in Bethlehem, just as David was. During the time of King Herod, Magi from the east come to Jerusalem, and they say, "Where's the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw a star in the east, and we've come to worship." Now these Magi, they're sort of naive, right? Have you ever said something and then ended up stepping into a hornet's nest and wish you could take it back? They've just stepped into a hornet's nest and they don't even know it. They don't even know it until verse 12 when they're warned by God, right? So imagine if you're, well, just look at Herod's response. So these Magi, they come in from nowhere and they say, "Hey, we saw a star. Where's the king of the Jews, this newborn king?" Now, and then look at Herod's response. When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and then all Jerusalem with him. Right? And so all Jerusalem probably doesn't mean every citizen of Jerusalem. It's probably pointing to Herod's sort of in-crowd, right? His political cronies. So Herod and his crowd are disturbed, because if the true king has been born, then they're out of the job, right? And they're probably in for a world of hurt, right? Because he's a murderer. His life expectancy isn't going to last very long if a true king comes rolling into town. And so, whereas these Magi, these Gentiles, these outsiders, they rejoice at the birth of Christ. Herod and his crowd, Jews, right? If there was one person who ought to rejoice most, it ought to be the leader of the Jews, the king. And yet he is, if you keep reading the story, eventually he's going to try and murder the true king. Quite the contrast. So verse 4. So Herod and his crowd are disturbed. When he called together all the people's chief priests, the teachers of the law, he asked them, "Where the Christ, the Messiah, where's he going to be born?" "In Bethlehem, for the prophet has written, 'You, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler, and he will be the shepherd of my people Israel.'" So the prophet has spoken this. The prophet he's talking about is Micah, and it's actually it's a combo here between Micah and 2 Samuel. So the first part about a ruler coming out of Bethlehem, that's from Micah 5:2. Micah, I don't know if you've ever read him, he's one of the minor prophets, which doesn't mean he's less important, it just means his book is shorter, FYI. But his book is 7 chapters. The first 3 are all like judgment. God says, "Hey, you all have been unfaithful, and I'm kicking you out. I'm throwing you into exile." So God's bringing the hammer down. And there's even a line in there like, "I've tried to send you true prophets or something, but the prophet that's most fit for you is the one who comes and says, 'Drink and be merry, be happy,'" something to that effect. I want to say it's in chapter 3. You should read it, it's funny. At least to me. So the first 3 chapters, judgment, and then in 4 you start to see a little bit of glimmer of hope, where God says, "Though I will cast you into exile, you won't stay there forever. Right? I'm going to send a ruler. I'm going to send a Messiah. I'm going to send a Redeemer who will come and rescue you out of that exile." That's where we find ourselves. That's what Matthew's picking up on here. This ruler will come out of Bethlehem, just as David came out of Bethlehem. The second part of the prophecy here, "Who will be the shepherd of my people Israel?" that is from 2 Samuel chapter 5, also verse 2. In there, David, if you remember, when he's a little kid, Saul's still on the throne. David's anointed king, but doesn't become king for a number of years after that. Saul eventually dies, and David becomes king of Judah, and he reigns in the cities called Hebron. He's there for 7 years while Saul's son is on the throne of the rest of Israel. Eventually, Saul's son dies, and all of Israel comes to David, and they say, hey, you be our king. Right? Even when Saul was king, you were commanding our armies, you come and be our king. And then the line goes, all the tribes of Israel came to David at Hebron and said, we are your own flesh and blood. In the past, while Saul was king over us, you were the one who led Israel on their military campaigns. And the Lord said to you, you will become my people Israel, or you will shepherd my people Israel, and you will become their ruler. So Matthew, then, when he's talking about Jesus here, he's picking up on, he's born in Bethlehem, so he's this Messiah, this long-awaited one we've been waiting for, and he's going to be the king like David, right? Whereas Herod is this pauper, right? He's this false king, right? He might have the office of king, but he's no king. The true king, Jesus, has come. The true king, Jesus, has come. So verse 7, Herod called the Magi secretly, found out when the exact time the star had appeared, and then this is what's crazy. So he sends the Magi to Bethlehem and said, go make a careful search. When you find him, come back to me so that I too may worship. Now what's crazy about that is Bethlehem is 5 miles from Jerusalem. The star landed 5 miles away, and not Herod, not any of the Jerusalem elite, like no priest, no scribe, not a single pastor went to 5 miles to Bethlehem to see if the Messiah had really been born. Right? At best, that's apathy. Right? So I googled it. That's the distance from here to Poseyville. I could run that in 40 minutes, like walk it in 2 hours. They're like, no, it's just not worth it. Maybe the king is born. I don't know. Not worth it. Yeah, 5 miles. So that he sends the Magi. Maybe it's a covert thing where he thinks if he goes, then the true king will run away. I don't know. At best apathy, at worst malicious intent. So he sends the Magi so that they'll report back and he can go worship too, which we know not true. So they heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen at its rising or in the east went ahead until it stopped over the place where the child was. And when they saw the star, they were overjoyed. Now NIV does you a bit of a disservice here. It's not wrong. They just miss out on a bit of the emphasis. In the Greek, there's 4 words. And they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. It's like joy 4 times in a row. They rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. They were happily happy. I mean, it's serious emphasis going on. Like when the Magi, when they see the star, they throw a party, right? I mean, they are flipping out. They're stoked, right? They're so happy. They're rejoicing exceedingly with great joy. It's a tongue twister. You should try it sometime. Right? That's the reaction of the Gentiles to the true king. Contrasted with the reaction of the inside crowd, right? The Jesus' own people, God's chosen people, the Jews, they're apathetic and in fact are going to try and kill him later on in the chapter, right? Serious contrast. I don't know about you, but I'd rather be the Magi in this story. I'd rather be the outsider than in Herod's in crowd. So they come to the house. This is 11. They saw the child with his mother Mary. They bow down and worship him, and then they open their treasure chests and give him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, which are gifts for royalty. They're warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, and they return to their country by another route. Right? So serious contrast between the behavior of these outsiders and then the behavior of those who should be the ones celebrating the in crowd. So what I want to come back now to is my first question. So Alexandra, if you can flip the slide. Yeah. Who's your king? Right? Are you going to be the Magi, or are you going to be Herod, right, and his cronies? Right? Who's your king? And I picked that picture on purpose because our king ain't like the rest of them. Our king didn't at least rule and come and dominate with power. Our king was crucified. Right? He got a crown, but not a happy one. He got a throne, but at least it wasn't pleasant the first time around. Right? He's coming back, and I imagine things will be a bit different. But that king, the crucified king, that's the king that we follow. Right? The one who is dining and talking with the woman at the well, the one who's dining and eating with tax collectors, the one who calls all men and women from every tribe, tongue, and nation to himself. That is our king. And so I just want to ask this morning, as we're sort of beginning this new era for this church, who's our king going to be? Right, who are we in this place? Who are we going to follow? Right? Are we? So if you've had any time with me and talked with me about like my views on ministry or how I think a church ought to run, blah blah blah, you may have picked up I have a natural inclination away from tradition. Right? That's wrong. That's not a good thing. Okay, I'm confessing that. Tradition is good and valuable and right. But I have that, I sort of immediately am suspicious because I'm terrified. I'm absolutely terrified of becoming one of Herod's crowd. Right? I'm terrified that I or the people in this church, that we would become those who worship traditions, those who worship doctrine, those who worship, quietness in a service. Those who worship hymns or pews or whatever, and we miss the point that we worship a person. Right? And so I'm terrified that we'll get caught up in all of the important but peripheral stuff, and we'll lose our vision on our king. Right? We worship a person. Right? And we're constantly learning more and more about him. Right? We haven't figured out everything in this text. Right? We're still learning about it. And so as we learn, we're going to have to change things. And I'm not saying anything we're doing right now is wrong, but what if we find out, like we're reading a text and we're like, oh my gosh, what we've been doing for the last 20 years is not a good idea. Are you willing to change? Right? Not because I said so or whatever, but because we've revealed something, the Bible revealed something about our king, and our king is asking us to do something different. I don't have anything particular in mind. I'm just, who's our king going to be? Are we going to follow a person or a set of traditions? Right? And so again, traditions are right and good, and I'm wrong in my overwhelming suspicion of them. Okay, so I need you to pull me back, but I'm trying to pull you toward a king. Okay. Yeah. So, who's your king? Does Jesus have a significant impact on your wallet? Does he have an impact on the way that you designed or bought your house? Did he affect the way that you buy a vehicle or you drive a vehicle? Does he affect... What's up, buddy?
Our church in Michigan, I actually learned a story about Jesus that I thought was actually really interesting.
Good. I'm glad, bud. Can you tell me afterwards? All right. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, so who's our king going to be? Who are we going to worship? And so, Alexander, if you can hit the next slide. Just two super practical things up there. So what you see on the slide here, ignore the picture for a minute and just look at the top line. The first one, just read the Old Testament. I presume we're part of the Stone Campbell movement and we're modern Americans, and so the Old Testament is weird and foreign, and we'd much rather read Paul than we would Samuel. All But all this time I've been saying, like, son of David, son of David. And if you don't know who David is, that doesn't help you at all, right? And so I just picked 1st and 2nd Samuel, because those will tell you about who is David, but more importantly, who is God via his relationship through David and Israel. Right? And so I want you to get into your Bible and read it. Read these stories. And I don't necessarily don't assume that you have to read it, a verse has to jump out, and then you get this little devotional high and then scamper off on your merry way, right? I expect you will read most of your Bible and probably be confused. That's okay. It's ancient literature. It is confusing. But you pay me to make sense of it, all right? So I need you to know it, all right? I need raw material to work with, right? And as you do, you will learn about God in a way that a modern theology book can never tell you, right? You'll get more than I can ever say. And so, 1st and 2nd Samuel, it takes me probably 3 or 4 hours to knock those 2 out. And so I wouldn't expect you're going to sit down and in an afternoon knock it out, right? But maybe over your Christmas break, right? Or, I don't know if you get a break or not. Maybe during the month of January, right? You knock out 1st and 2nd Samuel, and as you do, just learn the story, right? You don't have to take it and make it into a bunch of moral case studies. Just learn the story and learn about God as he interacts through history, okay? The second one, so I threw this picture up there. The song I want you to listen to is called The King, and it's by Lecrae, who's right there. And I picked this for 2 reasons. One, the song sums up everything I've been trying to say in the last 2 weeks in 4 minutes. I mean, it's phenomenal. 2, I'm trying to challenge who your king is, all right? Because if I look around this room, we got a bunch of white folk, all right? There's nothing wrong being white. I'm a white guy, okay? I'm a white guy from Whiteville, all right? And so when I look at a picture of this, right, and I show this to you, most of what you see, all right, I see a black guy. He's young, he's got his hat backwards, he's got the gold chain, he's got the urban clothing in an urban setting, and if it's an album, he's probably a hip-hop artist, right? And so automatically you're judging, all right, he's a young guy, he's black, he's urban, he's going to be singing about money, sex, and drugs, right? Or poorly treating women or whatever, right? And so you automatically stereotype him, right? It's human nature is wrong, but it's human nature. And so I just want to challenge you, who's your king? If you saw this guy walking down Main Street, would you just sort of shy away to the other side or quick dart into your neighbor's house, right? Or if he said, hey, would you greet him with the same love that you would greet anyone else, right? If you're in the blue moon and he pops up on the stool next to you, right? And would you make small talk with him in the same way that you would if he was a white guy in a flannel shirt, right? So, 'cause seriously, like, our king is not white middle-class American. Jesus is not American. Jesus is Jewish. He's from a land thousands of miles away. It's 24 hours on a plane. Okay? Right? And so I'm just trying to challenge you. Our Jesus wants men and women from every tongue, tribe, and nation, every people group. Right? And so listen to the song, A, because it will build you up, and then B, because it's going to force you to challenge your own presuppositions, your own stereotypes about people. And I was going to play it for you, but I thought that would be a bit too much too fast. So I'll leave it up to you to go listen to it, but I tell you what, I would share this stage with this man any day. I would stand shoulder to shoulder with him any day, because I know who his king is. He worships Jesus. He's just from a totally different world than I am. Okay? And so I just want to challenge you, rethink, or at least consider, who is your king? Are you really following Jesus, or are you following someone else? So get into your Bibles, learn who your king is, and a real practical step, just look up this song. Okay? It's 4 minutes of your life, and it'll enrich you. And last thing, I bought 3 of his albums, and I hate rap. Like, I don't enjoy the style of music. But his lyrical content is so phenomenal. It's so I've learned more from him than I ever have from a radio sermon. Okay? So just throwing that out there, that Jesus works through different ways than we white folk might expect. So that being said, I'm done, and would you pray with me? Father God, thank you that you're at least willing to be our King. I pray that we would truly make you our King, that we would follow after you. And I pray that you would reveal yourself to us as you truly are. Right? We have a lot of conceptions and we think we know stuff, and yet we can't see what we're blind to. And so would you reveal our blind spots? Would you challenge the way that we look at you, that we might know you truly for who you are, and that we might chase after you and be faithful to you. And so, Jesus, be our King, and may we be your faithful servants. I will love you, and in your name I pray.